Welcome to another episode of Digza Podcast. On this episode, we'll be having Albos as our guest. Albos is one of the most interesting product designers I've worked with. He has over 10 years experience designing UIs for companies to build their products. I worked with him at Crowdbotics for over a year. We had an interesting working experience. He's a very nice person. He has a lot of experience to share.
It's never been easier, as I said before, to become a product
Yeah,
designer. Like design is the field itself is full of rejections on almost a daily basis. Every time you design something, you're exposing yourself to other people's feedback.
I believe you'll learn a lot from him on this episode, so stay tuned. If you have any questions or thoughts, don't forget to add them on the comment section.
so welcome, Albos, to our podcast. It's nice to have you as a guest, and thanks for honoring our invitation to be part of the podcast. Quickly, I would like to have you introduce yourself. Maybe you tell us a little bit about yourself. Maybe basically tell us about how you kickstarted your career as a product designer, and then we could get started from there. Yeah,
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Yeah, that's my,
yeah,
I think, first podcast, so this is very exciting.
nice.
Um, yeah. So my name is Albors. I'm living in Vancouver, Canada right now. I'm originally from Iran. Um, the start of my design career was kind of by accident. I went to Malaysia to study industrial design for about 5 years. Um, and my dream was to become a car designer or a different type of product designer, like physical product designer, like phones and mouse and keyboards, that type of product designer. And back
Mhm.
then, the UI UX design was called, I guess it was just called UI design. Back then, this was 2012. So when I went to Canada, all I knew how to do from college was how to do keynote presentations um, for stuff that I 3D modeled in my computer. And I was really interested about Apple. One thing I did was I went to this website called meetups.com, or is it Meetup? I'm not sure if there's an S. And I
Mhm.
found a group of developers, iOS developers, because I thought that's the closest thing to Apple. And I messaged the organizer saying, hey, can I show these iPhone concepts that I came up with? Back then it was the iPhone 8, I think. No, this was way before that. Anyway, so he said, yeah, sure, why not? So I went and presented the designs to the team, to the group, and somebody in the group came up to me afterwards and said, hey, can you come help me design my app? And it was then that I realized there's a job where people design apps. Like it never
Wow.
occurred to me that people design apps. Like I was always thought it's like part of maybe software development. I'm not sure. Like I had no idea what I
Mhm.
was doing basically. Just out of
Nice.
college, no idea about anything. So I worked with him for basically free for about 6 months. We designed an app together, and after 6 months, we went back to the same meetup and we presented the app to the same group, and somebody in the audience hired me as a full-time designer. So kind
Wow.
of started by accident. Yeah.
Very interesting. So, in terms of 3D and graphics design, how do you go about learning? Because, in my own understanding, it's one thing to know how to use the tools, and it's another thing to be creative with those tools. So, how do you go about learning and then blending it with some creative skills to come up with great designs?
Um, so yeah, as I said, like 3D design is I studied that in college. The tools we were using in college were like SolidWorks, so very technical
Yeah.
applications, not really useful if you're making an animation for like your website. It's really
Mhm.
designed for production. Um, and because I was doing application design for like from 2012 to 2017, I kind of missed doing 3D things basically.
Mhm.
Um, and I was always on YouTube looking at like tutorials here and there, how people are making things, but never put the time or had the time to do it. Uh, But one day I watched a tutorial, I think it was by Grayscale Gorilla. It's a YouTube channel that does Cinema 4D tutorials. I watched a tutorial and it was like from zero to some animation, basically for very
Hmm.
beginners. And I thought, oh,
Yeah.
that's easy enough. So I downloaded the app and followed the tutorial and made an animation. And it was really fun. And I started doing it just for fun on the side. I had no long-term visions or goals or anything with the 3D
Yeah.
side of things. I was just doing it because I missed playing in 3D basically. So I
Nice.
kept making those videos, and um, after a couple years of just practicing and having fun, I realized, oh wait, I can use this for some parts of my work. So one area that you can very easily integrate 3D modeling and animation into app design is a logo animation. It can be, if you're working on an
Yeah.
app, like a splash screen, when you first open the app for first time users, a nice animation that reveals the logo as a first time user experience. Or if there's a long loading time in the app, you can use a small animation that just keeps the user busy and it's not just a
Yeah.
spinning circle. Um,
Sure.
yeah, so not, I wouldn't say you should learn 3D modeling for those animations because sometimes it's just easier to find someone who knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Don't spend 2 years for one animation, but if it's something that's fun and exciting, I think it's rewarding journey.
Nice. So you were involved with Toastmasters, right? An organization named Toastmasters in the past, and you did some volunteering work. How do you feel those stuffs, those past experience contributed to your personal development and professional growth?
Mhm. It's a very good question. Toastmasters, I think. So I always liked doing keynote presentations, starting from
Hmm.
college because I was so interested in Apple, and back then Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive were doing all the keynote presentations. Um, and I would like watch the iPhone reveal like 10 times in college because I had nothing else to do.
Nice.
Um, and I thought because I was mimicking them, so I thought I was kind of good at it. It turned out I was good at 5% of it really well. So like the pacing of the presentation and the slide decks were great, but how I was presenting it could use a lot of improvement. And going to Toastmasters, it really highlighted the areas that I was lacking. One thing they tell you about is using filler words when you're speaking. And when you're presenting, there's a guy with a bell. So every time you say, they hit the bell and then everyone hears it. And you're like, I should stop saying that. And you're like,
Yeah.
ding. So that makes you, I'm saying it a lot still, but it's a lot less than I used to before. The idea is that instead of like using filler words, because we find silence a bit uncomfortable, just be quiet. And the effect end of the day is that if you pause for like a couple seconds, people are more excited to hear what you have to say instead of,
Yeah.
oh, and then this happened. That just sounds like you're trying to impress, I guess. It's a psychology thing. I'm not sure how it works.
Yeah.
But removing the filler words in every meeting, that was the biggest impact, I think.
Nice.
Toastmasters had. Yeah.
So, when it comes to being a great product designer, like what advice would you give to a beginner who is starting out? What tools should they consider? How should they go about learning? Yeah, basically, if someone wants to be great at product design.
I think it's a really great time now to be a product designer because we have Figma. When I started, I was using Photoshop to design. Um,
Mhm.
and so everything was in one Photoshop file, and I had groups of layers. Each layer was an icon, and then the groups were pages you had to hide and show them. It was a mess. I don't know how I designed anything in Photoshop. But now there's Figma and it's free. You can have a personal account. You can even push the personal account quite a bit for dealing with clients, so you don't have to start paying the monthly fee. It's a really their file is very flexible as long as you're not having multiple editors. You can have as many free projects you want in Figma, which is great. My advice would be to just start. Um, Download Figma. It runs on both Windows and Mac. It even runs in your browser if you don't want to install the app.
Yeah.
Um, just install it and follow what interests you. Like think about um, I do some mentorship on the side, and I see sometimes certain traps where people think about how do I optimize to um, like make more money, or how do I optimize to get a promotion. Um, I personally, I'm not sure if this is good advice, but I personally never thought of it like that. I always followed what interested me. There's this old Steve Jobs quote that says, "You can't be happy in your life if you're not doing great work, and the only way to do
Mm-hmm.
great work is to love what you do." So
Yeah, sure.
find what you love about product design. If it was an app that you one day used and you thought, "Wow, this is amazing," find it and take screenshots, bring it in Figma, and then recreate it. See if you can recreate the
Yeah,
magic for yourself.
nice.
And keep doing that. Be on the lookout for other apps that are great. There is many tools like there's Dribbble and Adobe. Is it Behance, where you have like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
other people's design portfolios. Keep looking and see what inspires you, like what makes you go, "Oh wow, that is great." Like whatever it is, it could be one small button, it could be an entire application, and take screenshots, bring it into Figma, and recreate it. Um, and recreate to build the muscle memory of how to create those experiences.
Yeah,
And after a while, I think you will build the internal knowledge um, of where things should go. And that's how I think that's the fastest way to get better at something is by practice.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
So, when it comes to building up, like doing a product design, when you get user needs, like how do you approach, like how do you get to put things together to understand, okay, these are the needs of the clients, and this is how I'm supposed to present those needs in my design. What are some of the decisions you make?
Um, so the process is very different depending on the size of the company. If
Hmm.
you're in a small startup with just a designer and a founder and a developer,
Yeah.
then the meeting goes something like the founder says, "Oh, I talked to my cousin, and then he says we need to have this button. Go design it." And that's your user research and validation and market fit. That's all of it. That's one
Yeah.
sentence. If you, on the other end, if you're at the large SaaS corporation, you can hear from the leadership team that, "Oh, this quarter we want to make push this specific feature because we're thinking of a feature launch next quarter." So
Hmm.
then you start having meetings with customers and um, trying to understand what their needs are, how they're currently doing things. But internally, how I try to organize the user needs and translate them into designs, I use a tool called MindNode. It's a
Okay.
mind mapping tool. You basically create a hierarchy of anything, text-based mostly. So I create either the feature, or at the smaller company, usually it's the entire app. So I have the app and I have the tabs inside it. And inside of each tab, I have the features that go inside it. And inside each feature, I put everything that's necessary to make it work. For example, if I have a social media app, there's a homepage, and inside the homepage, there are posts, and there is filters, maybe there's a search. And under each post, there is the person's name, their profile picture, the photo, the text, and a comment and interactions button. Um, and the reason I create that mind map is, one, to organize all the information in my own head. It's really hard to hold an entire app in your head because it just keeps growing. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody ever remembers every single option in the Instagram settings page, for example.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. Even the designers at Instagram, I don't think anyone can recite the entire settings list by memory. So you need a
Yeah.
device to store all that information. So the MindNode app has been helping me a lot over the years. And that's the first benefit. The second benefit is that when you translate the user needs into a mind map, which is technically your information architecture, that is the easiest way to communicate to all other stakeholders and get their approval. At a small company, it would be showing it to the CEO or the founder saying, this is what I'm thinking. Does this match your expectations? Like, and when somebody says, oh, I want to add a feature, you can point to the mind map and say, I think the ability to repost should go in the home feed. And then under search, when they find something, it should go under the post there. And you can have a discussion at the mind map level, which is in seconds, really, because you can literally drag and drop things around in the mind map instead of, oh, let me go to Figma and design something. I'll be back next week with the final mockups. And then they give feedbacks. And instead of thinking about, oh, where should this feature be at all, the discussion becomes, oh, did we use the right icon? But in a mind map format, it's just text. It says report. There's no feedback on text or color or anything. And does it have the right parent in the hierarchy? That's the main discussion. And that helps speed things a lot up so much. And at larger companies, I still use this with like the project managers and can't really show a mind map to the leadership team at a SaaS company. They're expecting a higher quality. But for quick iterations with your PM and maybe with engineers as well to get validation that this is the right approach. And then you can create the mocks and then present it to the rest of the team. I think that helps a lot.
Nice. So how would you advise people to approach user research and on how to approach their designs? Like, how do you approach the research on your product design? User research mostly.
Great question. So I didn't have any official education in digital product design because my background is in industrial design, the other type of product design. So as a result, for the first like half of my career, first 6 years, I mostly relied on gut feeling and just shipping and seeing what people say afterwards to test things. That was the user feedback cycle. There was no official going to customers. And for apps, like smaller applications, it's a lot easier to just ship and then see what people say, have an email button that says, or give feedback button inside the app, and you build that feedback loop going. But over the years, it became really clear that, oh, we really need to talk to users first, because at a larger SaaS company, you can't just ship things and then see what users say. If you ship something and somebody doesn't like it, you lose like $100,000 a year in revenue. So it's a bit more costly, more consequence at larger companies. So now so the ideal flow is to ideally you talk to your existing customers. If you don't have existing customers, it's a brand new product. You find customers of your competing applications and services. And if you think you don't have competitors, you haven't done your research. You always have competitors. You're just not looking the right place. There's an old saying, like, if you think you have no competitors, either you don't know how to research or your product is not useful. So that's why there are no competitors. So there's always a competitor. You just have to ask the right questions and look at it the right way. And once you talk to people, I was really lucky to be part of this course that a UX designer at Google kind of did a course for my previous company. I'm not sure what happened there, but somebody from Google came and told us how they do user research at Google. And it was so informative that after the meeting, I looked back at my career and I was thinking, wow, how did I do anything before this? It was, so they went through how to set up the meeting, how to like the first few minutes, you just talk to the user, make them comfortable, ask them about their day, nothing professional, just very relaxed. And instead of putting their mind at ease that this is not a test, you can't do anything wrong because we don't know how it's going to work yet. So just think out loud as you're going through it. Your feedback will help us understand what is missing. So if you don't understand something or if you don't know where to click, that is the feedback we're looking for. So we don't want to rush the user or we don't want them to feel judged when they're testing something, because sometimes if they can't find it, they're like, oh my God, I'm afraid they might think I'm stupid. I can't find a button. But no, that is what we're looking for, is that if you can't find it, that means we have failed. So we need to make it more clear.
Nice.
And yeah, there's this one question that has stuck with me is, tell me about the last time that you blank. So the example we went through in the course was, if you ask somebody what type of movies they watch on Netflix, if you're like researching on Netflix, they will say, oh, I watch documentaries and old cinema. But if you ask them, what was the last thing you watched at Netflix? The answer is always different from what they actually said. It will be, oh, some reality TV show I watched last night with my girlfriend. Okay, so how did you decide that one? My girlfriend convinced me to watch it, and now we're both hooked and we're watching it. So that was the example they went through. And because if you ask what type of movies you watch or what do you like those type of questions, people start to think about how they want to be portrayed. It's like writing a social media post now. But if you ask them, tell me about the last time that you did this. Like, tell me about the last time that you went to your Instagram app settings page, for example.
Yeah.
And they will say, oh yeah, I went to change my password. Or, oh, I couldn't figure out this thing, so I had to Google it. And then I went to the settings page and I found it under there. I didn't even know it's in the settings page. So that way you get a lot more authentic responses, and not having a super rigid questionnaire for users. So once you're on the right topic, if you know that you're testing, like, let's say the settings page, if you're personally interested in like the account management and the password section of the app, if the user starts talking about privacy settings and those type of things, don't force them back into passwords. Just follow with that. Like, tell them, okay, what were you looking for there? Because you never know if that is what the user was using for. There is an insight to be found there. Don't force the user back to your own like ideal flow. Just follow them there. As long as they're in the right neighborhood, just go with them. If they say, I was looking at privacy, what were you looking for? What could have made your life easier? And just go with the flow. And most importantly, do not make your meetings more than 30 minutes. It turns out after 30 minutes, when you're asking somebody a question, they will tell you anything to end the meeting. So after 30 minutes, all the insight is not useful. So if you need to ask more questions, tell them, we're at time, can I set another meeting with you? So for user testing, nothing more than 30 minutes. Yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah, so you said a lot of interesting things about using user feedback to determine how you design. One thing I'm curious of is, what number of users do you use to ascertain if a certain feedback is good enough for you to make a design decision?
Oh, that is also a really good question. I guess it also depends on the feature. If the question you're trying to find answer for is something really big, like product market fit, will this product sell? Is this something people will pay for? I think you need to do a lot of research. Like in your community, find the right people and talk to 20, 50, 100 people and just ask them how they do current things currently, and if there is a pain point they have, without ever talking about your product, and see what pain points customers have. Because sometimes you have an idea And if you don't mention it, and if you talk to people about their pain points, they will say something completely different. So if you're trying to go for product market fit, you should definitely lean on the quantitative side of things. But on the other side of things, like this is very, on that side, you have almost like market research. You need a lot of feedback to decide company direction. So you need a lot of answers there. So you want to go quantitative with like hundreds of answers to see if this is a good path for the company to take to make more revenue, basically. On the other side of things, there are like feature level user testing where you notice that, oh, in this page, users are not clicking on the button we want them to click. Why is that? Sometimes talking to one customer, you get so much insight. Like you ask them, what do you think that button does? They're like, I don't know. It says apply today, but I don't know what I'm applying for. And then that suddenly clicks like, right, like I need to add a text there that says like start your college, whatever, today, apply today. And then instantly you have a solution.
Yeah.
Personally, like you shouldn't do this, but personally, like when I find those rare moments of like like one user is enough, in my opinion. But I know
Yeah.
many people disagree, you should test more. But
Yeah.
for some of those improvements, even that one feedback, I think validates that that is an area that can be improved. Um, yeah, but more is always better. If you have lined up 5 customers to talk to all of them. Because even if
Yeah.
each one of them gives you one, like the moment,
Yeah.
then you can compare the 5 different moments and see which one is higher impact,
Nice.
and prioritize your designs that way, basically.
Cool. So, like when you're doing your designs on Figma, for example, how do you ensure that you maintain consistency across like multiple pages on your design?
Consistency. Oof.
Yeah.
That is I think that is, I actually don't think if you're working for a large company with
Yeah.
like more than 5 developers, I think it's almost impossible to have consistent design every step of the way.
Yeah.
Because what are you consistent with? Are you consistent with the existing platform? Are you consistent with your own design system that is like the vision of what the platform should be? If it's a second case, are you consistent with the current state of the platform? Like sometimes there's components that need to be developed on the front end, but some aren't, so they're out of sync with your Figma designs. So what I try to do, which is a very difficult thing, is work with front-end developers and find out what their problems are. Find out what components are they reusing all the time. And this is getting into design system talk. So
Yeah.
find out what components they're using on every page and what are they frustrated about. Like we're always making a new table and every table is different. Because from a design point of view, if I'm designing an application, the first component every designer makes is the button. And it looks very simple, but it's actually very difficult. But if you look at your website right now, no matter the company you're working at, the buttons work. They might look different in different pages, but you click on them and they do the action they're supposed to do. And making the button component and going to your front-end developers and say, oh, hey, can someone help me change these 500 buttons in our platform? That's not going to help anyone. It's just extra work, and you're not helping them with their daily lives. So you need to talk to them and see where they're struggling. If they're saying the table or the search or the filter or the left nav bar or the global navigation or something is like a pain in their butt, basically. Every day they're struggling with this one. Every instance is being hard-coded in a different way. Then that's your first component to try and integrate. Yeah, and work with them, find the biggest biggest component you can tackle and challenge, and make sure it's implemented before you go to the second one. Because if they don't see the impact that changing that one component is going to have, like how it helps them going forward, the next time they're going to add a table and they reuse the components that develop with your designs, they're going to realize, oh, this is a bit easier. It's not going to like suddenly be a miraculous improvement, but it's going to be a bit easier every time. And they're going to think, oh, who made this? Oh, this was from design. That's great. The next time you suggest a component, they're going to be a lot more willing to help you because they have the experience that, okay, so what you design actually helps make our lives easier. Going back to making things consistent, in Figma, I kind of dream. So it's very hard to keep things consistent if you don't have a design system. If you have a fully established design system in a company, it is a lot easier to keep things consistent because you're just drag and dropping things from your design system and building pages. So you don't have to worry about, is this table consistent with other pages? Because it's a component and it's in sync with the front end. If you don't have a design system or are in the process of building it slowly with the front end team, I think that's where the real challenge is. And that's where I've been mostly, because I've been the founding designer or the first full-time designer at the past few companies I've joined in the past 6 years. So I never had the opportunity to work with a fully established design system, which sounds too good to be true, to be honest. I don't think anyone has a fully established design system, but I would love to see it one day. It would be very easy to work with one. But yeah.
Nice. Okay, so before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you about 2 to 3 questions just to get a hold of everything we've discussed. The first one is, what's your take about the job market for product designers? And as a product designer, when you join a new company to work remotely, what are the first steps you advise any product designer to take?
Again, great questions.
Yeah.
So the market right now for product design, it's never been easier, as I said before, to become a product designer. There's a Google UX course that you can take for free. Figma is free, and Google Meet is free. You can talk to people all over the world for free. So the technology is getting better every day. But as a result, you're not going to be the only one who thinks that. So there's going to be a lot of other people that are also realizing this, that, oh, this is easy, or this is easy to get started with, at least. I think I would go back to my previous statement that make sure you follow something that you like. Because if you don't love doing this, you're not going to have the energy to push through all the downtimes and the hard times, because there will be hard times. It's a competitive market now. You're going to be competing against so many other designers for the same job, for the same contract. And like design is the field itself is full of rejections on almost a daily basis. Every time you design something, you're exposing yourself to other people's feedback. And if you don't love it, it's gonna like hurt, and it's not gonna be a good experience. Yeah, if like build a tough skin is, I think, one of the best things you can do. So if somebody gives you a hard feedback, listen and try to understand where their negative feedback's coming from. I've had people tell me, "Oh, this design sucks," and I'm like, "Okay, well, tell me more. Why do you think it sucks?" So, but if you like, you have to completely separate yourself from the designs almost.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you every time you get hurt a little bit, it's gonna be really difficult, because design is something everybody has an opinion about. That's always been something I'm jealous of developers. when you push code, like nobody from management comes and says, I think you should use this variable name. No one has feedback.
Wow.
Like, does it
Yeah.
work? That's all that matters. But with
Yeah.
design, everyone has an opinion, which is great.
Yeah.
We're looking for feedback to improve it. But sometimes it's like, hey guys, it works. Just take it easy. Um,
Sure.
yeah. Right. So for the market, I think that'd be my advice. Make sure you really love doing this before getting in. It's easy to get started, but the road is not as smooth as you might think. And
Hmm.
only by loving what you do, you can push through um, all the hardship, basically. I forgot the second part of your question. What was the second part?
Yeah, I think you basically answered both questions in
Oh, okay.
it was
Great.
mostly about okay, yeah, it was mostly about yeah, the first steps you take when you join a new company.
Mm,
Yeah.
right. First steps to join a company. Um, it depends if you're joining an existing team. I think you should become like do your best to become great friends with the rest of the design team. There is
Hmm.
this sometimes this I guess social pressure or something for designers to be like very cool and like designery, like they have like cool tattoos and rings and earrings. I don't have any of that. So
Yeah.
I try to just like we're on the same team, man. Let's just have fun.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and if somebody is like very careful with their appearance and they want to make sure everyone knows their designer, for example, nothing wrong with that, but you have to work a bit harder to get close to them, I guess, because they have that
Hmm.
image or something maybe. Um,
Yeah.
so, and without your team support, you can't, it's going to be really difficult to do anything. So first step, just be friends with everyone. Make sure you have good communication. Make sure if you're giving them harsh feedback, they don't take it personally.
Yeah.
And that only happens if you talk and if you like learn about the other person. If
Nice.
you're going to be the first designer on a team, a bit different. Make sure you become friends with the people you're going to be working with, the PMs and the devs and the stakeholders you're going to be working with. Make sure you have a good reputation there and make sure they learn your style. If you're comfortable with feedback in a specific way, you can tell them and ask them, hey, can you give me feedback in this format? I think that's how I can be most productive. Or I guess the second step would be to catalog all the existing designs. Sometimes as as I said, I've joined as founding designers in a few
Yeah.
companies. There were like multiple contract designers, and they worked somewhere in Sketch, somewhere in Figma, different accounts, different organizations even. So I had to like go and dig deep, find everything, bring it all together and obviously the website looks like nothing of the designs, but at least you see what areas people were researching back then. It's like archaeology
Yeah.
almost. You like with
Interesting.
fossils and find the bones, try and figure out what people were
Interesting.
doing back then. Yeah.
Nice.
Um, and then slowly
So,
build from there.
um, nice. Thanks for the feedback. So, to wrap this podcast up, I would like to get your opinion about the role of AI in product design. Do you think AI will take up most of the responsibilities of product designers, or you feel it will enhance their work? Or you feel, I mean, what's your take about AI in product design right now?
Today, I think if you use AI tools, I use ChatGPT Plus, and I have different threads going on for the different types of design questions I have. I have a thread
Mhm.
for user research. I have a thread for labeling things inside of the app. I have a thread for copywriting inside of the app. And it helps me so much. That is today. It helps me a lot. I think it's made me a better designer, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example of how it helped me, like the biggest way it helped me once. There was, I woke up one day and there was a Slack thread like with four people talking for like hours. And there were links to um, like Jira tickets. There was links to Notion documents inside, each of them like 5 pages long. And suddenly someone at me, at Albers, can you make some designs for this? And I'm like, okay, this is gonna take me 5 hours to just read through all of this. So
Mm-hmm.
what I did was I copied the entire Slack conversation, um, pasted it in ChatGPT, didn't hit enter, and I copied the entire Notion document inside of ChatGPT. And then I said, I'm a product designer at Cardbotics. I've been asked to do this. Can you summarize what the ask is? Um, so then ChatGPT told me, oh, it looks like they're talking about the feature in this page, and they currently it's like this, and they want it to be like that. As a follow-up question, I said, um, how are there any, because it would have literally taken me like 5 hours to sift through and understand all the complex relationships within a document. I asked it,
Mm-hmm.
is there a solution mentioned somewhere that you think would solve the problem uh, they're asking about? And it said, yes, like you can do this. It was mentioned in this document, in that link. And I said, okay. So, and then you can just keep pushing it, see how far it can help you. I said, right now, like you can copy paste the page too from your product. I said, here's a existing page. Where would you put this solution? I have some ideas there, but just to get its feedback too, like as a
Yeah.
co-designer,
Yeah.
almost like pair designing with AI.
Mm-hmm.
It said, oh, the feedback can go there. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's not the best place. I'm going to move it there. And so I created uh, the new feature. And then I went back to it. I said, what button title should I use? Because it's a really weird feature. I don't know what the call to action button should be. It gave me 10 suggestions. I picked the best one. I said, what should be the copy in the empty state? Um, it gave me a good enough example. Like I'm sure marketing will take another pass at it. But for me to
Yeah.
just have something ready to show in that thread, um, I had like a screen in 30 minutes.
Wow.
And I posted it back, and suddenly all the fighting calmed down. Like, oh, that's how we can solve it. And then the discussion became around maybe we can move the feature one level higher. It seems like a good solution. We make it more prominent, or this button could move there. And suddenly everyone was solution oriented. People weren't,
Yeah.
they stopped talking about, oh, that customer called me and they said they're having trouble. That customer said this. All of that stopped. Everyone was now giving feedback on the design. And it was an urgent ticket. So like the next day, the design were attached to a ticket and it was being sent to the front end team for working.
Nice.
Um, so that's the current state of AI. And I think how you can use it to, that's how I'm using it to improve my workflow.
Yeah.
Right now, there are some tools like UI Zard, UI Wizard. I don't know how to read it. It's UIZARD. I don't know how to read pronounce it. Uh, where you can just give it one line of text and it gives you it's a similar tool to Figma, and with one line of text, it can give you an entire app like with layouts and buttons and even prototypes.
Nice.
So you can click different pages. Um, I think we're gonna see a lot more tools like that coming soon. Um, I think it's only a matter of weeks before somebody makes a plugin for the UI wizard tool for Figma. So inside Figma, you can write one sentence and say, make an app that does this, and it creates the entire app for you. And I think maybe we are a couple months away from. So right now, what it's really good at is going from zero to something. But going from something to something better is very difficult. Or I haven't seen that yet. I think in a couple months, we're
Yeah.
going to see a tool inside of Figma where you can say, can you make a copy of this settings page and make it higher contrast? Or I want to have account management in this page. And it will just recreate the entire page for you and you'll have it there. In terms of the long-term AI, how it's going to impact UI design, it really depends on how fast the AI growth is going to be. All the tools, almost all the best tools out there right now are based on GPT-4, and GPT-5 is supposed to come out end of this year, maybe around November, December after the US election, or maybe early next year. When GPT-5 comes out, it's going to be so much smarter. So all of these tools overnight are going to change their models from GPT-4 to 5, and suddenly they're 10 times smarter. So before, when you said, I want this app, and it was okay, suddenly the next day it's going to give you a really amazing application. So there are questions like, what is the role of a designer in this future? If the founder of a company can just ask a question and they get something that's good enough for them, well, what is the need for me there? I think even in that scenario, there is a need to still talk to customers, gather their feedback, and find the best way to implement those feedbacks back into the design.
Yeah.
But again, but looking like 5 years into the future, like what happens with GPT-7 and 8 when they're out, it is really hard to predict what role we will have in the future. It's very hard to predict because it's like exponential growth, and I'm barely adjusting to today. And so my suggestion is stay on top of the news. If you know how to use the AI tool, learn it. Like, there's a lot of great YouTube channels that like talk about AI news. Matt Wolf is one of them. Olivia, I forgot his last name. It's an S. It's a red logo with a white S in it. I forgot his last name. Yeah, there's like, just type AI news every day on YouTube and follow the top guys, and go to Twitter and follow all the AI guys and see if there's something new that comes up. And I think end of the day, if you're worried about AI taking your job, it won't be AI itself. Like, GPT-5 is not gonna take your job. Somebody using GPT-5 is gonna take your job. And make sure you just stay on top of it.
Nice.
Yeah. There's two ways to think about it. You might think of it, there is a fixed market size and it's going to be shrinking the number of designers we're going to need. But with many of the advancements in every tool, it turns out when things become easier, the market grows. So companies might need one designer instead of 5 in a year or two, but will there be 5 times as many companies? I don't know. But the market will also be growing. So there is that balance. When things get easier, economy grows, more people start companies. So stay in the loop with AI. That's a huge thing. Like I try to follow on Twitter and YouTube every day. And I still think I'm missing half of it, but yeah, that's my advice. I don't know if it's positive or negative, but yeah.
Interesting feedback. Thanks a lot for your insightful ideas and suggestions. So if our viewers want to follow you, where can they find you?
I guess LinkedIn. I kind of stopped using social media. I have an Instagram and a TikTok page, but I don't have the apps anymore. If you want to get in touch, follow me on LinkedIn. Add me if you have any questions. Ask. I'm more than happy to help any way I can. Yeah.
Nice. Thanks a lot for being part of our podcast. And I hope a lot of our viewers will learn a lot from the insights you've shared. And thanks once again for honoring our invitation.
Of course,
thanks.
This has been great. Thank you for inviting me. This was a lot of fun. And thank you.
All right. See you then. Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. Bye.
And that concludes the end of another episode of the Digza podcast. I hope you've learned a lot. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comment section, like the video, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next episode.